Hello, my loves. All right, today I want to jump on and talk with you about something that I see in almost every woman that I work with when we are working on embodying more of her feminine energy. And this is when we hold judgments and resistance around different aspects of our feminine energy. It might be our sensitivity, our emotions, our vulnerability. It might be our sensuality or sexuality. It might be our fullness, the fullness of our feminine self. And I see this so often when I'm supporting women to come into deeper connection with their feminine. They have all these judgments around different aspects of their feminine self, different feminine qualities. And these judgments cause them to close off to those aspects of themselves. These might be judgments like, it's not safe to be vulnerable, or it's not safe to be in my sensitive self. It's not safe to be in my full radiance or magnetism. It might be that I'm too much when I am fully expressing myself. There's no one that can hold me. It can be guilt around feeling pleasure. It can be that we see our emotions or aspects of our feminine as being weak. And so all these judgments that we have and all this resistance that we feel is the very thing that stops us being able to fully lean into and embody our feminine. So I unpack this a lot with women in my coaching programs, and I want to talk a little bit about it with you today. So one of the first things you would want to explore if you're working through this is, what are the parts of my feminine that I hold judgments around? What are the parts of the things that would help me embody more of my feminine that I have a negative story around, that I feel aren't productive, aren't strong, aren't lovable, aren't safe, okay? And that will help you see where you've got a block around a part of yourself that you're pushing away with judgment. And I want to talk you through how I unpack this with my clients, because for us as women, coming back into our feminine, loving being in our feminine is such a gift. It is such a gift to be a woman, and it is such a gift to be embodied in our feminine. This will be recorded. Hi, Ashley, how are you? But because we grow up in this society that still tends to value the masculine more than the feminine, and has a lot of structures built up that are based on the patriarchy and the masculine, us as women can feel like, how do I fit into this? How do I bring my feminine into this dynamic or situation? Or we can feel like, if I bring these elements of my feminine to this person, to this relationship, will they be loved and accepted? Will it be okay? So the first thing you want to unpack around this is, where does this come from for you? Where did you pick this up? Because like I said, it's the number one thing that stops us really feeling free to embody the deliciousness and beauty of our feminine energy. For me, it came from my childhood, as it does for most of us. I grew up in a family where my father was the strong one. He had what I perceived to be the power in the relationship. He was a very dominant man, and I saw my mum being dependent on him. So my mum raised the family, and he had his business and he went out to work. So I saw the masculine as being, he had all the freedom, he had the money, he had all the fun, he got to go and do whatever he wanted. He was successful, he was achieving things. And so I grew up really valuing the masculine. Whereas I saw my mum, and to be honest, I held a lot of judgment around my mum. I perceived the feminine as weak, as being dependent on the man, as not having her own sense of self, not having her own money, not having her own identity. And that caused me, when I was a child, to reject aspects of the feminine and really value the masculine, and instead say, I want to be like my dad. I'm going to be independent. I'm going to grow up and I'm never going to rely on a man for money. I'm going to make my own money. So I became independent, work-focused, achievement-focused, and self-sufficient. And I really closed off to aspects of my feminine. I closed off to my intuitive side, my creative side, my sensitive side, my emotions. Someone's saying here, this is me, Teresa. Yes, it happens to so many of us, and I see it in so many women that I work with. And so we pick this up, right? And we model this, and we reject parts of ourselves and bring on other aspects of ourselves that we think are more positive or lovable or productive or strong. We want to be more of that. And then we come onto this journey, like my experience was, of either a personal development journey or wanting to get into a relationship. And we recognize that all of these judgments and resistance we have around our feminine is blocking us now. It's blocking us calling in love. It's blocking us feeling joy. It's blocking us feeling connected to our body. It's blocking our pleasure, right? So we want to start to reclaim those qualities. But we have to look at where we picked all this stuff up, what the stories and judgments are that we developed about our feminine and why. The next thing we need to do is reclaim these feminine qualities again and actually see the beauty and the gift in these qualities. Any woman that I have done feminine work with really begins to see and feel just how delicious and powerful and amazing her feminine is. It feels so good. If you are a woman that wants to be more connected to your feminine essence and that identifies with having a strong feminine essence, it feels like home when you come back to that energy. And it feels really painful to be disconnected from that energy. It creates stress and tension and burden, and life just lacks that beautiful joy that it has the capacity to have for us. So what are these qualities that you've judged? Like I said, for me, one of mine was any form of dependence. So I didn't want to be dependent on anyone. I didn't want to need anyone. I didn't want to show any form of vulnerability of being weak. And that caused me to constantly push men away because I was always sending out the message to men, I don't need you. I don't need you. I'm good. I'm strong. I'm capable. I'm whole. I'm self-sufficient. And that was repelling men. So I actually, when I was calling in my relationship, had to begin to own the part of me that wanted and even needed a man. Not from a place of weakness, but because it would contribute in the most beautiful way to my life, because I loved being able to sink into my feminine in relationship to the masculine. So when we're looking at what are these feminine qualities, someone has just asked that. So it'll be things like perhaps sensitivity, your emotions, your feelings, your heart energy, vulnerability, openness, receptiveness, flow. It's also your sensuality, your radiance, and your beauty. It is your love, your unconditional loving heart. It is your light. It is your power. It is the fierce feminine that stands up for herself and has boundaries and speaks up, right? It is the part of ourself ultimately, though, that is more feeling-based, more heart-based, more focused on love and connection. And like I said, I had judged that part of myself as being needy and weak. So one of the things that I teach my clients to do is to lean into the edges of their feminine through things like movement and dance. So I've worked with clients, for example, who have a lot of judgment around their sexuality and embodying the full expression of that. So I give them a dance practice and I'm like, I'm going to get you to pick a song and I want you to use that song to move through and embody and express that part of yourself. Lean into the edge of that. If you have judgment and resistance around your sexuality, it can also be things like exploring that in your own body, allowing yourself to explore your own sexuality and your own pleasure. It can be about how you express that energy, which doesn't have to be with other people, but it can be about how you express it yourself, again, through dance, through different things that you wear, through the different ways that you move your body. If you have judgments around your more tender, emotional, sensitive part of your feminine. A practice around that would be learning how to hold yourself through your emotions and feel your emotions. Rather than closing off to what you feel, you create a practice around, when an emotion comes up for me, I honor it. I create a safe space for myself to feel. I let myself process my emotions, and maybe I even express them to others. Maybe I start being honest and let other people know how I'm feeling. When it comes to the part of you that is radiant love and light, because that's a big aspect of the feminine, this beautiful energy that we have that can be such a joy to be around, this beautiful heart energy of love, that when we embody it, makes us so radiant, it makes us nurturing, it makes us want to care for others and take care of others, it makes us kind and compassionate. It's about seeing the beauty of that energy rather than the weakness or negativity around that energy, and actually recognizing that it is, I would say, your heart is the most beautiful thing about you. And it is your heart and revealing that loving, radiant energy within you that makes you attractive, that makes you magnetic, that pulls people in, that invites people to get closer to you, that makes you a beautiful gift to the world. All of the feminine qualities have this incredible power and gift to them. And so it's up to us to reframe that and to begin to look for what is a strength and a gift in this particular quality, rather than all of the judgments that we hold around it. And beginning to practice working with those qualities just by yourself, actually leaning into that space of vulnerability, leaning into that space of tenderness, practicing more around your own sensuality, allowing yourself to feel pleasure when you're eating, as you're moving through your day, identifying that quality that you want to embody more of and creating a practice around that will help you begin to feel safe in it. And one of the other things that's really important for the feminine that I hear a lot from women that I work with is this feeling of it being somehow weak or passive, or like we're going to be dominated or controlled or taken advantage of by coming into our feminine. And maybe you had an experience of that when you were young. I work with women where I hear this, that they had some type of experience that made them no longer feel safe to fully be in those more tender parts, those more innocent parts, those more vulnerable parts of their feminine. And so what we need to put in place for ourselves when we don't feel fully safe in that energy is strong boundaries, to be living in our power, to be tuned into our intuition, and to be using our voice to always be communicating what feels good to us, what doesn't, what we want, what we need, what's a yes for us, what's a no for us. Because like I said, if I work with women who have had experiences when they're young of having that energy be taken advantage of, or having something negative happen by being in that energy, it's because they hadn't yet developed the ability, they were only young, to have those boundaries, to be able to say yes and no, to be able to speak up, to be able to know what it feels like to be in their power. So there is this incredible power and strength that we can feel in our feminine, even if we are in the most vulnerable, open, surrendered, revealed space. If we know we're really tuned into our body, we're really tuned into our intuition, and we're constantly listening to what our yes or no is, to if something doesn't feel good, to if we need to speak up and communicate, and we're in our power around that. We're in charge of our energy. We're in charge of who gets access to our energy. We're in charge of what happens to our energy. And that allows us to feel safer, being in the full radiance of that. Because, like I said right at the start when I was talking about the judgments, a lot of women have judgments around it being more of a vulnerable or an unsafe feeling to be in the fullness of their feminine. if you are here with me live and there's anything you want to ask or share around this, around any particular quality of your feminine that you see as negative or weak, or that you have a judgment around, or that you don't want to embody, ask away. I know that's a vulnerable thing to put in the question box, but I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. And like I said at the start, I just see this over and over with every woman that I work with. This judgment and this closing off to the feminine qualities within ourselves. Even things like surrender as well, that if I surrender, I'm being passive. When you fully drop into a space of surrender, either in your life in relationship to the universe and you let yourself be guided, or in relationship to a partner that you really trust, it is the most life-giving feeling. It allows you to flow. It allows you to stop thinking and analyzing and be so in the moment and be so in your body and be so in the experience that you just get to enjoy the pleasure and bliss of a moment without having to be in your head. And that's really what I feel is the gift of our feminine. It invites us into such a deeper level of pleasure in our lives that so many of us cut off from because we're afraid to lean into it. So I just want to talk about this with you today. Oh, I've got a question coming through. What is a way to deal with a man who says negative things when you try to express your feelings? Oh my gosh, I hear this so much. So many of us hold back what we're feeling because we don't think it will be received well. We don't think the person we're sharing to can hold it. We think they'll judge it or, like you said, say something negative about it. And every situation's different, so I'll just share a couple of different things around it. The first is there is an art to how you reveal what you're feeling. And this can take some practice because a lot of us women have the tendency, without realizing, to express from a place of we're either projecting that emotion, sort of throwing it onto someone else. We might be really triggered in the moment that we're expressing it, and so it comes out in a really intense way that someone else can't metabolize or fully receive. It might be that we're using too many words. So rather than the person actually really feeling our heart and feeling what we're feeling in that moment, we're sort of in a story, trying to explain it and justify it, and that doesn't allow someone to really connect with you. Have you ever been on the receiving end of someone who's been really beautifully vulnerable, who has just simply like revealed and expressed just who they are and what they're feeling in that moment? When it's done in the right way, it really invites people in to understand what you're feeling and to support you. I know the trouble I've had with my partner is that men very often, this is a generalization, but I have noticed it, men do receive sometimes what we're trying to express as a criticism, as an attack, and they become defensive. I've noticed that a lot. So there's a real art for us to be able to say, this is what I'm feeling right now. Versus sometimes what we do, which is like, you did this and you didn't do this, so now I'm feeling that way. That can sometimes be perceived as an attack or a criticism by the masculine. So it's up to us first to really actually connect with the emotion. And I always say, try to bring the intensity of your emotion down from like a 10 to like a 5 before you communicate it, so that they can metabolize it, they can receive it. You know, if someone throws an emotion at you at like a level 10, you're like, whoa. But if you actually process it a little bit within yourself first when you're feeling something, and you land on, okay, what's this really about for me? Beautiful, Teresa, I'm glad this is resonating. Got a little fly here. What's this really about for me? And the pain point, find the pain point. Like, you know, he said that thing before and that really hurt my heart. Or he did that thing before and I felt dropped by him. Or he was running late and I felt abandoned by him. Really come into what it's really about for you, not the story. And when you identify that, then you communicate from that place. So I would say to him, you know, before when you got home an hour later than you said you were going to be here, that was terrifying for me because I didn't know where you were, and I felt really scared, and I felt really abandoned because I didn't know if you were actually going to be here. And if you can just speak from what it's really, really about for you, it's much easier for them to receive. And then just the final thing I would say on that is that, and this is, tough to say, but not every man does have the capacity to hold a woman in the fullness of her feminine. And that just could be from his own upbringing, of not having much exposure to feminine emotion, or having women in his life who didn't express much emotion. So he never learnt how to handle it. So you might just sometimes encounter men that haven't yet built that capacity to fully hold you in your emotions. And that's up to whether you can work that out with your partner, or whether it's just that he may not be the man that can fully hold you in that. I've definitely met men like that throughout my journey. Anyway, my loves, I just really want to share this with you because it's been a running theme that I've encountered. And for us as women to come into this full love and acceptance of ourselves and the fullness of our own feminine and all the different beautiful things that make us feminine allows us to be received and held by others in such a deeper way as well. If you want to dive deeper with me into some beautiful feminine work, reclaiming parts of your feminine, coming back into alignment with parts of your feminine, particularly around your radiance, your pleasure, your joy, and your magnetism, and using this energy to create what you desire in your life, come and join me in She Is Magnetic. The doors close on Sunday. Was what I was trying to say. She Is Magnetic. In this course, we're going to be diving deep into feminine principles and manifestation principles, and I'm going to be guiding you to awaken these beautiful qualities within yourself, and you're going to be understanding how embodying this energy makes you magnetic, and how this is actually, particularly moving into 2021, the key to aligning your energy in a way that makes it so much more effortless and enjoyable and natural to manifest what you desire without all the hard work and the stress and the anxiety. Beautiful. Someone saying here, thank you. Your wisdom and your feminine radiance is such an inspiration. Thank you. That's a beautiful thing to say, and I'm receiving that wholeheartedly. All right, my loves, if you want to learn more about She Is Magnetic, go to conniechapman.com/sheismagnetic. We start on Sunday. You don't have much longer to join me. I want to help you wrap up 2020 with love and gratitude and really align your energy to prepare for a magical 2021. I hope to see you in there. Thank you to everyone who's been here with me live, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.